Exactly. Same.
I did text you, Mary, and Jeremy. Reports away an official reply from DHS government. Okay. Okay, so Jeremy won't be able to make it today, but we can just quick go through what happened over this last week. Looks like we have clean up. Give me just 1 second to make sure that people are able to get in. Looks like Bob Whiteford is having a little issue. No, I'm not sure why. I think we're good now. Okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get the meeting started. We have a little bit of a smaller group today, but hopefully that's a good sign, and that means people are busy in a good way. We have some good updates, and then I'm sure, and actually some not so good updates. So for today, we'll review again the lack of practice space that we had brought up as a main issue last week from clubs, and I'd like to just touch base again with everyone to see where they're at, if there's been any movement in that department. I think there have been with some people, and then others not so good. And I think that'll give direction to the venue operators to know really what's the outlook for their tournaments that they have scheduled. And then I'm just going to share my screen again just to show you what updates I put out on that web page for you on the Smart Start page. So I just tried to clean it up a little bit and just made it a little bit more readable for people who are coming out there. Things that were posted out there for a little bit, I plugged under these drop downs on, again, who are we and why is this, why do we want to get together? For sure, we want to come together as a coalition to support each other. If some negative happenings are happening in another county, it's going to impact everybody. Whether or not one club is open, we may not be able to go into another district. The venue in that district may not be able to be open. The clubs may not be able to run. So from the sense I have from last week, we've had a number of clubs who stated that they could not find practice space. I would say it was like over 90% of our clubs were having difficulty finding practice space. And just so you know, because that's such a personal circumstance, and I didn't want just anybody in the public to hear what your story was, to protect you and your business, and I'm sure you are communicating to your families. When I posted the video meeting for last Wednesday, I cut it off early since that was pretty much our last topic. So that way, at any time when we really talk about stuff like that, I don't want you to feel like you shouldn't say something, because we should be here to be able to support each other and keep sports moving forward for our athletes and for your organizations. But I just wanted to protect you in the sense that if you weren't comfortable and confident of just the wide public and who knows who's on this website, if you didn't want anybody to know where you're at because you weren't ready to release that statement, I did cut short that video from last week. So on YouTube, instead of an hour and 15 or 20 minutes, it's like 52 minutes. So that discussion was turned off. But for those who might be watching this one, please understand that the situation that our Wisconsin clubs are in is tough because of the schools not opening up to allow them to come in and practice. And that's what's been the biggest debate so far, and what Representative Jeremy Thiesfeld has been trying to provide is an avenue and ways for us to approach those districts and ask them to give you that space. I'll do just a brief insurance update. I'm not sure if Keith is going to be on this call or not. We did have one on Friday, and I just have a couple things to take to share with you if you were not. And then I'll just touch base with you, or just share with you where you can find the information on the letters and pretty much what they stated from Jeremy to the governor, then governor back to Jeremy Thiesfeld, and then the letter from the Legislative Review Board. And on that, like just quickly after that, I asked Mary if she could give a note or an update on what she did and what her experience was. I ended up adding some more links out here in case you're always looking for the link for these meetings. I post it out there now publicly, along with a bunch of links to all of the resources you would want to have at your fingertips. So the CDC, the Wisconsin Department of Health, the Department of Health gating criteria, the Badger Bounce Back Plan, in addition, of course, to our Smart Start Plan. I did update the Smart Start Plan and added, this was the 4th version update, and I forget off the top of my head the last little bit. I just tweaked some areas, and those notes are always on the last page. So just so you know that there is an updated version on that was posted on May 21st. I also posted some links to some recent email or announcements from just that have to do with sports in general, just so that you can see, like NCAA says, hey, college coaches, you can allow your athletes back to campus for some limited training with some regulations and restrictions. Conference, there's a link to ESPN in an article they put out on when conferences are saying that they, like NCAA conferences are saying that they can start opening up their play dates and their practice dates. So just some different things like that that are pertinent to the time at hand in case you miss it and you don't see news updates like that. I'll throw them out there. If you have any that you see and that you want to share with everybody, let me know, and I'll post it on this page. And I'll continue creating. I don't know. Okay, that's weird. I know I have May. Okay, wow. I didn't spell May correctly here. There's 2 A's. And I know I saved May 27th notes up here. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why it's not showing. Maybe I just have to refresh my page. Could be why. Yes, there it is. Okay. So I'll still put out the agenda out here so you have an idea of what we're going to talk about. Please feel free to send me any information you feel is pertinent to add on there that you want to cover. If you have any questions on, just give me a little heads up in case I need to reach out to somebody or do a little research first. So I'll stop sharing that and move right into, okay, I'm gonna need a little bit of help from you guys too, because this has been just a crazy week for me personally. Our facility did open. Just to give you a little background, our facility opened on the 26th, yesterday, and we were able to, we went to the county and they were pretty much like, they just said, we don't have anything to say. If you have a plan, you're great. I think I mentioned that last week. So we prepared to open up our facility for just training purposes, fitness and sports. And as of yesterday, we have we're fortunate that we had a contract already set with the Community First Champion Center in Appleton. So we scheduled our practices to start June 1st and 2nd of next week. But we're still in a mode of trying to finalize some sort of tournament schedule for all of our teams and our families. And that's a big piece, I think, for everybody, in addition to practice space. And then we're going to share what we think. It's going to be a limited tournament schedule, but we're going to push it out to our families. And for our youth who may not be able to get 1 or 2 tournaments, we're going to give them an opportunity to say, hey, we're still in or we're out. We're coming up with some other ideas to provide them so they can continue to get value for the monies that they paid in, like a 3-on-3 league later on in summer and fall, in addition to the virtual trainings we added into our program. But so even though we have practice space, we still may be negatively impacted because of the time frame for starting the season, everything getting scrunched down, and knowing that other clubs are in a situation where they're not finding practice space and may not be able to run their teams. Because if we think we're going to have a 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade teams going to tournaments and there's only one other club that's signed up, obviously it's not going to happen. So a lot of communication needs to happen this week, I think, amongst all our clubs to help everybody move forward with eyes wide open. NCAA, has anyone heard anything or any rumblings or rumors about any NCAA updates for whether or not college coaches will be will be given the green light to go to tournaments in July during the viewing periods? I haven't seen anything posted or pushed out yet.
Lisa, that decision, my understanding, is going to come today or as early as today.
Okay. Wonderful. I was hoping this week so that we can finalize those tournaments that we're looking to go to in other states, and we can have a better idea if coaches are going to be there or how far we should travel or not travel. So thanks, Corey. Any other NCAA rumors? Okay. AAU update. So we did have an insurance meeting with Keith Knoll on Friday after our conversation on Wednesday with the whole group. And 2 things. They are reviewing the COVID-19 waiver that was put into the Smart Start plan to make sure that it would be suitable for, oh great, looks like Keith's going to be on shortly, that it's suitable for everyone to use, and just to make sure that you have the right language so you're not spending additional money for, from your program to have a lawyer review it. AAU can actually pick up that cost for you. Hi kids, sorry. I don't think I can have them on video. Okay. I don't know if you guys saw, that's the Sweeneys. If anybody knows the Sweeneys, there's like a young girl and 2 boys, and they're out of Appleton, and they are in the gym like 2 hours a day, nonstop, every single day. They just continue to train like crazy, which is great. So they just love it. It's their playground. Keith also is working on a comprehensive plan for all sports directors, and that way we can save everyone money and just provide the directors with more insurance coverage and other opportunities in running events and tournaments without having to pay for every single one. So he's working on a plan, and he's going to be on this call shortly, so we'll just leave that for him to talk about. Legislative update. So Jeremy is not on this call, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, again, share my screen so that you can see what he has done since last week. So he did send the governor a letter. And basically in this letter, if you haven't read it yet, it was addressed to Evers, Andrea Palm at the Department of Health Services, and the state superintendent for the Department of Public Instruction. And he outlined the challenges that we're facing as youth directors who need that public school and private school space to run our businesses and run our youth programs. We know that the Department of Public Instruction in the emergency order number 28 had shut down schools through the end of June. And that is still in place for teachers, for school-run programs. However, that doesn't mean that they can't open up these facilities to you. So state or school superintendents, when they met with Jeremy, were uncertain really how they should move forward. And communicating with the DPI, and this is again all this communication is on this list, so you can go through it and you can share it when you go to your school districts. The DPI told the school superintendents, hey, you're free to open up your doors to public entities if you so choose, especially if you're in a county that doesn't have restrictions on opening up businesses. Like we know that Milwaukee, there are still some areas with restrictions on opening up, and Dane as well. In addition, Jeremy shared the Smart Start plan with these individuals or these agencies, and pretty much said, please support us and give us the green light. Both Jeremy and Senator Roger Roth signed this and backing it. I did get more support from medical associations, one being orthopedic sports and medicine specialists out of Appleton and Green Bay. And I will put that out, that information out on this page as well. In Governor Evers' response, two things happened. The Department of, let me just make sure I go to it. The Wisconsin Department of Health responded to Jeremy's letter, and it was a response to Jeremy's letter. And it's under this DHS on community. So the Department of Health posted and updated, and they're updating this every single day. And it's hard to tell what exactly they're updating or not updating because there's a lot of content on here. But under the Department of Health Services, under the community and faith-based page, there's a section under youth sports. And in response to Jeremy's letter, specifically about youth sports, the Department of Health just says, we just think that everything should be canceled or postponed through the summer until we meet the Badger Bounce Back Plan benchmarks and gating criteria. So they were just like, everything is off as far as we're concerned. It's the continued same message that we hear from the governor. Everybody should just stay home. And when you follow the gating criteria, and if I sound a little negative about this, as I followed the gating criteria, we have a link out there. This changes daily. We had all four, there's 6 different gating criteria, different circumstances, different tests that they're running, that they're deciding on whether or not even though we are all open, but in their eyes, whether or not we should be open is based on these. And the last 4 were all green a couple weeks ago. The 2 on top were red, and now they switch every single day and every single week. These are really all over the place. And the more that you dig into this data and you look at it, and I won't go into details now, I'm going to write up just a response to the DHS's what they're saying about this gating criteria, because when you look at it from, they're saying we're just gonna follow what our scientists say, but when you look at some of this data and these graphs, some of it is a little silly, honestly. When we're looking at COVID-19 cases, absolutely, when somebody's sick or they're hospitalized, that's serious. But when a lot of these criteria are looking at a very small population of numbers, and they're not comparing it to the entire population as a whole, and then they become, if you don't do that, they become negligible. They don't even pertain to us moving forward or not. And so I'm going to write up something that I'll share with you guys before it gets posted. But it's really interesting when you look at, and even when you look at the way these graphs are set up, any real scientist knows you can't present a graph without complete information. There's no labels, there's no units, there's things on here that just doesn't make sense if they're truly relying on this to make decisions for the entire state and all of our counties and businesses. So this is why I know that the Supreme Court made a good decision, because there's a lot more at hand going on than meets the eye. And so moving forward, if anybody wants to respond to that, please do jump on, because it really does impact you. And it's what bothers me is that we have some businesses that are open, like for example, mine, and you are the same business, and yet you're restricted from opening because certain other entities are being told one thing or have a fear of moving forward. So it's hitting the youth sports industry more than anybody else.
Hey, Lisa, this is Scott from Impact. Could I speak to that real quick?
Sure, sir, please.
I've done quite a bit of digging into that as well, and this is kind of what I do every day. I'm an actuary, and my background is in statistics. And so when that first came out, I took a look at it, and my feeling was it would be almost impossible for us to get to a point where all 6 of those things would be green simultaneously. And as you pointed to, they're all over the map. The problem is that they're only looking at a 14-day period, and they're forcing it to be a statistically significant trend. So even though the overall trend is down, and it might be statistically significant if you looked over a month or 2 months, when you keep having a rolling 14-day period, it only takes 1 or 2 days of volatility to make it not be statistically significant. And there's a lot of potential gamesmanship just in how the data is being reported. The other problem that you have is you can be in a steady decline over a long period of time, conclude that you've never reached statistical significance, and pretty soon you get to a level at which it is impossible to decline in a statistically significant manner. So these measures keep dropping down, and it gets harder and harder for them to turn green. And that Badger bounce back, you have to go through that process 3 times. We haven't hit it even once yet. Once you hit it, then 14 days later, you have to hit it again. And then 14 days later, you have to hit it again to get to phase 3. So I understand the people that put that together were well-intentioned, but if the idea is that we're not going to get the supposed green light until we reach phase 3 by those metrics, it's never going to happen until, I mean, we have a better chance of waiting for a vaccine or having the virus completely eradicated than we do of ever hitting phase 3 on the Badger bounce back. So anyway, that was my take on it.
God, I appreciate you stepping in and explaining that. That was excellent. I completely agree. When I looked at that 14, my first thought was, Well, you can have one day throw you off, and now you're back to red again, because maybe you have, and that's the thing, maybe you have a number of people feeling ill, and that's one of the gating criteria, and they're feeling ill, but then do they have COVID? Or did they have a cold? It just, there's so many things about those gating criteria that they're just not, it's not a strong proposition for whether or not we should go forward. And Scott, I agree that I think they were absolutely well-intentioned, but there's a lot of holes in the strength of whether
Well,
they,
and somehow it went from we needed to show a decline to all of a sudden it needed to be statistically significant with a p-value of 0.05. And a lot of those measures, even though like 3 of the lights are red right now, if you look at the graphs, they are declining. It's just their p-value is greater than 0.05. And in some cases, you know, it's 0.06 or 0.07. And it's very difficult over a 14-day period with a low measure that shows lots of volatility. It's very difficult to get a p-value of less than 0.05. And I don't know if the people that put that together knew that or if they were just winging it, but now we certainly should know enough that it's going to be very difficult for those measures to ever be satisfied.
right. So, and even on this first gating criteria where it says downward trajectory of influenza-like illnesses reported within a 14-day period, it's never fluctuated.
Well, how are we going to drop statistically significantly below 27 to 35 a day? Like there's not any room to go down, and we have to do that 3 different times from this current level. It's absurd.
Right. But I'm glad I'm not the only one feeling that way. Is there anything else, since I know you looked at this even more specifically or had more time into it, especially with your background, that you want to say about any of these specific gating criteria for people to get a better understanding of what's out here, what they're looking at, and where their weaknesses are?
I think it's kind of a red herring that, you know, for the people that want us to stay shut down, they can point to that criteria and it's an easy, you know, the website has 3 red lights, you know, why are you guys proceeding? It's just frustrating because the people don't want to dig any deeper than that. And, you know, it's debatable why these measures are even still being tracked, because none of these things are applicable now. This is all just sort of a behind the scenes for the government to say, well, this is what we would have done if the Supreme Court hadn't struck down the safer at home.
Right. Right. And I think the biggest topic at hand that makes me feel comfortable and confident moving forward is that is just the fact that if we get people moving and people working out, if you get exposed to any virus, any disease, you are better off being healthy and in good shape than sitting around gaining weight, like it's been easy to do the last 2 months, and getting unhealthy. And then it's harder for your body to actually fight that off. So when we're put in a lockdown and we're restricted from moving physically, like our bodies are not meant to do that. And so if anything, it makes us much more vulnerable, so that when fall or winter comes and, you know, flu comes back through again, which the thing is, we're never going to stop COVID. We're never going to stop the flu from coming through. It's going to go through the community. But how your body responds to it is going to depend on a lot of different variables and factors. And that's why it's so important, I believe, for us to get our athletes, to get our families back to moving again, get them in the gym. It helps them mentally, it helps them physically and socially. And better than looking at a red light and a green light on whether or not we feel like we should be confident. And what I found, unfortunately, when we open, even yesterday, people are still walking, you know, people will still come in with masks. we decided in our facility that masks are optional. Our staff, it's optional for them. And if people are not comfortable, they don't have to wear them. But it is interesting to see. I think there is this group mindset that if we don't do certain things, like all of a sudden we're going to be vulnerable. And for me, I know that our family was really sick in January. I swear I've had COVID. I think the best thing we could do is to get everybody tested with a serology test to test for antibodies and let people know, hey, you may have already had COVID, or you may have been exposed to it already, and you can move forward and freely and without fear. But I think a lot of people, so much fear has been put in place that they're afraid to move forward and make decisions to open up businesses or to go out in public or to not wear masks. And yeah, that's just a whole nother topic. I apologize for digressing, but so with that, I'm actually going to move into, you can go through and you can see more of the letters that were written back to us as an entity. So please read through those. But I want Mary to share her story because she actually has a really good feedback for you guys, and what she did with the letters and the Smart Start plan and personally what she did with her business to actually move forward. So you can take it over, Mary.
Okay. Well, first of all, Scott, great stuff. And I totally agree. So much of that, it's hard to get everybody to necessarily believe it. I not only have my club teams, AAU, if you will, teams, but I also run leagues in the area, and I use Catholic schools. And I took Lisa's Smart Start and the letter from the DPI and my own document of what I would do if I were to be allowed to run the leagues. And they were just blown away by how awesome it was. And so I was very hopeful that we would be able to start our leagues June 15th, but Lisa, sadly, they said, no, they're not going to open it before July 1st. They will open July 1st. And I don't know if you guys all saw the WIAA said that schools are allowed to have their spring sport athletes, track, baseball, whatever, are allowed to start as of July 1st. So they get like a 30-day period of time to work with their athletes. There'll be no scheduled competitions, no state tournaments or anything like that. But if schools want, high schools, they are allowed to bring their athletes back, which then they told me I would be able to start my leagues in July. So the first full week of July is July 6th. So that's when I'm scheduled to start my leagues. And I was very hopeful they were going to bend on the July 15th, June 15th, sorry. But a couple things. One, Pius is in the city of Milwaukee.
Mary, and they said yes, but then now they
said that, they were very, very much on board with it, but because they're in the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee's still under, the Safer at Home, that's one issue. And the arch was just uncomfortable. The other thing that they brought up is that trying to explain to parents who are paying all that money for tuition that their kids, athletes, can't come in the building, but outside people can. And they were also felt that they needed to be sensitive to that. So they won't open their doors before July 1st, but they will open July 1st. So our leagues will be able to go, which is so they say now. I guess that could change. On a flip side too, in my club program, AAU, if you will, we have about 150 kids, and only 3 parents have backed out of our younger team for really good reasons. So that was encouraging. And of the 80 teams that are in my leagues, we have 80 to 100, somewhere around there, only one group has pulled out. So people want to play. And that's, those are grown-up decisions. So I don't know. This is all hard.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Mary. I was so optimistic when last week you told me that you were given the green light.
Yep.
Yeah.
They took it to the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, and they had their big meeting and stuff, and they decided, nope, July would be their opening date, which is still positive. We can still get a league in July in the first week or two of August.
So Mary, what about your practices? Do you still have access to that gym that you can use?
As of now, yes. And that gym is not a school, so
Okay.
that's the loophole for getting in there. The school closed down, so it's just basically a vacant building that's up for sale right now. So that's the loophole for getting in there.
Based on your experience so far, can you recommend, based on what you did, even with the movement and the response and working with the schools, can you recommend anything to the rest of the clubs on if they haven't done anything yet, what they should? I
would go to your schools and bring those letters. That was so many of them haven't seen our Smart Start. They had no idea the letter from the DPI existed. That was all new to them, which is surprising. I don't know why that isn't in every hand. But it's worth trying. There may be schools outside of, Pius being in the city of Milwaukee that may bend on it. Catholic high schools, but more are shutting down too. Catholic Memorial said absolutely not. Marquette said no. DSHA said no. So the big Catholic schools in the area are saying no to all summer. Pius is still on the open in July.
Okay. Does anyone else want to share where they're at, if they've had any luck moving forward with their school districts? Has there been any updates? So Todd, from Legends, thank you for being on this week. And I'm sorry that we missed your email and updating you on these meetings. You've missed number of good weeks of conversation and updates. And last week, the directors went through to state where they were at with their practice facilities, if they can get in or not. Todd, how are things looking in the Green Bay, De Pere area?
They're very, very challenging, just like I think what probably everybody is dealing with. The schools are locked down till July 1. With no flexibility at all. We've been, like everyone else, trying to find private sources that we can utilize for practices or workouts, et cetera. But that's been challenging. I think we're close to finding some stuff down in Appleton. It hasn't been easy, and frankly, I chatted with Scott Witt a couple times here over the last few weeks, and I agree wholeheartedly with everything that he just stated on the call. The biggest hurdle for us has been trying to find space to practice so that we can get the girls acclimated and ramp them up. And then be able to make a decision on if and when or where we want to play. And frankly, I haven't been willing to commit to events until I knew that we had gym space, because I just, in my own heart of hearts, as badly as I want to play, and I have 2 girls in the program of my own, so I have some selfish interests. The biggest thing for me is I would feel awful if we didn't get them acclimated appropriately and we went to an event somewhere and somebody got hurt. And most of our girls have been off since end of February, early March. And I know they're all doing stuff, right? But that's the old man and coaching me knows that doing stuff is way, way different than live interactions. So that's been my own, I guess that's me on my soapbox a little bit, but that's been my own hurdle with trying to figure out where we go next, even once we can begin some get them wrapped up a little bit or get some workouts going.
Thank you, Todd. Does anyone else have any updates or changes from last week? Oh. Hmm. Uh, looks like Keith's on the phone. Keith, are you listening?
I am.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, Keith.
I was on another call. I could not get off.
No, no problem. Thank you for joining. You actually sent an email last night that was pretty disheartening.
Yeah, it's everybody's going through the same thing. I mean, just when we think there's a little light at the end of the tunnel, somebody comes by and puts the hurricane shutters up.
Okay. So over in, oh, is Kara still on too? Over in the Eau Claire, Dunn County, right, Keith?
Yes. Dunn, Chippewa, Claire, all the way to St. Croix to the border to Hudson. This whole area is basically shut down, and everybody knows where Minnesota stands, and we're pretty close to them. But and I've talked to several of the county health nurses, and their big complaint before was no action from the state health department. And all of a sudden they come in, and then they all jump on that bandwagon. And I really don't see any of the schools over here. Now I'm going to make another call this afternoon when the AD gets back in from Menominee and see if there's any chance there. But my feeling is that it's not going to change, that the schools, just like the state university system for the colleges, are done for this year. And I just think that the schools in our area, I don't think that they're going to start that 30 days of spring sports. It'd be interesting to see what they're going to do, especially when there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, you can go, I just find it incredible that you can go for 30 days and get your spring sports wrapped up, but then tell them there's going to be no competition and no championships. I mean, what's the point? You know, it's just, I don't know. It's not looking good over here, Lisa.
I'm sorry to hear that, Keith. Kara, you want to say something? I see you. Oh, you're talking to Mark? Okay, there you go. Tell him we said hello. Has anyone, just with the NCAA, so NCAA made that announcement that coaches can now start bringing their athletes to campus. I saw a video released, I forget who it was that was on it, but an NCAA member director that said they felt like it was better if they opened up the universities, because they then could control the environment that their athletes were in, the numbers, the cleaning, the disinfecting, and things like that. And so that was one of the reasons why they said, hey, starting June 1st, we can get back to some sort of type of practice. I think if private and public schools, high school and under, are not opening, maybe we would have an opportunity in the universities around us to use some of their facilities. Has anyone thought about that, or have approached that, or heard anything from any universities that are closer to you? If they have facilities that could be potential rental spaces at all? Because I know, like,
Well, I'll interject there, Lisa. As far as, you know, all River Falls, Stout, Eau Claire, La Crosse, all of them, everybody, because La Crosse was the last one that made the decision on what they were going to do. But what I've been told is that all the state university colleges, they're down. There's going to be nothing else on their campus for the outside groups for the rest of the year.
okay. And do you feel like it's just in your area because you guys are still having that restriction in place? Or do you think that's for the entire state with the universities?
No, I was told by coaches at those places that it's that way for everybody across the state.
Okay.
Lisa, that's what UW Whitewater told me as well when I talked to them the other day.
Okay.
I think that, was that announcement from the NCAA only for Division I schools?
I believe so.
Yeah. that's what I
Yes, it
thought.
was.
Yeah, Lisa, as a hobby, I coach football at St. Norbert, so I have access to that facility, and we're locked out of there till like at the earliest it would be August, at the very earliest. So they just started bringing some. They're going through a process right now, phasing people back in to campus. But I looked at that as a potential venue for us to rent and utilize, and it's an absolute no-go. In fact, that was one of the facilities we were using for our Legends Classic in June, and obviously that's a no-go. So we'll probably be releasing an announcement here this week that we'll be canceling that event.
Oh, you're talking about the Legends Classic?
Yep, for our tournament in June. Yeah, Father's Day weekend.
Okay. That was going to be a topic I wanted to bring up, is that as people were going through websites and trying to see what tournaments might be available, if they do have teams that they could find practice space for, not all sites have been updated. So what I ended up doing, and it's not full at all yet because I just started it, was, let me just share my screen real quick, was to create a document that we can share and post out. So not everybody's making the same calls all the time. We've made a bunch already. I just don't have them showing here. But for example, the Legends Classic, if I know that Legends Classic is going to be canceled, then I would put this on this document. That way not everybody's making the same calls to poor Todd and he's trying to answer a million from different clubs. Would you guys be interested if I just created a document for everybody? I reached out to all the club directors, the venue operators, to see where they're at, to know, hey, is their tournament still on? Has it been postponed? Has it been canceled? Would you find this a valuable resource at all?
That's great.
Be good, Todd. Okay. Because I know even like Just a Game, they're in a completely different county that they get given him the green light. He's just waiting for teams to register. So I think it would at least give us an opportunity to see what's going to be available. And for the programs who do have teams, it may be that we decide as a state, hey, these are the different tournaments on certain weekends. Maybe there's only 2 in the state going, but we have everybody go to those tournaments to make sure that we have teams to play. That might be the way to go this year with Wisconsin, seeing that with the limited number of practice spaces, and sometimes teams I think we're getting to the point where directors, all of us, are going to have to make a decision with our programs if we're going to continue certain teams or not. We know that our families want their kids to play, but if there aren't other teams to play, those tournaments are just not going to happen. So I'll put this document together. It's a public, I'll share it in an email after we're done. You can help me out by dropping in your tournaments as well, and letting us know if they're canceled or still on, or if there's an updated date. For example, Hardwood Hustle, we moved our June 5th through the 7th Hardwood Hustle to July 31st to August 2nd, expecting that to be more likely. So I know other people have done the same, pushing it back. The concern, however, is if you can't move forward with your club teams through June, are you guys at a point where you are considering dropping the season for at least your youth teams at this point? Has anyone made those decisions yet? I'm hanging on to hope, but I'm in a different situation because I have practice space. But if the wave across all our clubs is that you logistically cannot move forward that really means it's going to be the case for everybody. So if people can talk to that, that would be good.
Hey, Lisa, this is Bob with Wisconsin Rap.
Hey, Bob, thank you for being on.
Yeah, sorry, I tried to get in, it included me out, so I got on kind of late, so I missed about the first 25 minutes or so. But as far as our club, we had a meeting again last week. We've got another one tomorrow with kind of all the coaches and whatnot. So far, our replies and response has been extremely favorable as well. Same thing, they want to get things rolling here. I obviously have our top team on the girls' side, and we kind of sent out a survey, another one last week, kind of updating what we were going to attempt to do for practice and for games. And we only had one reply come back that was questioning kind of what we were doing. So that was positive, because it definitely looks like, as soon as we can get going here, we will. As far as our youth teams, they're kind of looking at June right now as nothing for them anyways. They're going to try and start picking that up in July. And I think it might even be easier, depending on when these tournaments get rescheduled, for the youth teams to continue playing into, August, September, maybe even later. Because if their high school feeder teams don't start playing, I feel like that may just continue, with options for club teams on both the guys and girls side.
Yeah, we had that conversation as an option as well of, do we push our youth teams to July and August, or even August, September before youth clubs start? And of course, everybody has a different opinion on, well, they may play volleyball, or they might have some sort of other sport.
Right.
It's different for everybody on a team. So
Right. And then just curious, I know I had messaged you too, and thanks for your reply last week. And like I said, I missed Scott talking earlier on, but like for you and Mary and Scott, are you guys going to even try with like the Run for the Roses or the new Nike regional tournaments anymore? Or are you guys just going to kind of push off and try to do more of the state stuff and late summer?
Mary, do you want to answer first, or you want me to?
Yeah, as of right now, our parents want to go. So, like everybody, I think we're kind of on that holding pattern of do we or don't we. We're all scheduled with our hotels. Our families are ready to go. But so much will be if they're going to keep going.
So, and yeah, for feedback from Blaze, so our families too, for our top kids, more so I would say the girls and the guys, because the guys were going to be more Midwest, but our girls top teams were going to go to Run for the Roses. So they're all in. They don't mind traveling to Nashville.
Louisville, right? Or Nashville now, Nashville.
Yeah.
Because they switched up.
Yep, they switched to Nashville. So now we're just talking about, do we stay in Nashville for the Boro, or do we go to Indiana for the Nike? So we're moving. We feel confident that those will happen. So we're moving forward with the expectation that they're still on. They're going to be on, and we're practicing for those weekends. And then Iowa, and then there is that. The Windy City got moved to 24th to the 26th, and I was looking at that going, it like falls, it overlaps with anything else that's big posted out for that last week in June, the week of June 20th. And for our organization, we were signed up for the Windy City. So, I'd rather go to Milwaukee, but it also, if the viewing periods are going to stay the same in July, the 26th isn't a viewing period day. And if you go to a different one, it overlaps. So I don't know if anybody's looked at that schedule at all yet for their girls.
And I might have missed it, but it has the NCAA. I mean, I know they suggested to continue the dead period through July 31st. All the coaches things did. So, I mean, have we heard yet? What's the next step for that?
Corey has an answer on that. he mentioned something earlier.
Sorry. What I read was that it could come as early as the target date for their next decision on whether it would get extended beyond June 30th.
Did you hear that? I'm not sure if it cut out on your end. Corey did say that they're expecting to release an announcement today or tomorrow. Is that right, Corey? Okay. Oh, you're just
That's my understanding. The 27th is the day.
okay. Awesome.
Well, and you guys, I would assume people wouldn't even bother going to those like Nashville and stuff if there's not NCAA certified, or would you still go to those if they're not certified?
It's another.
I can speak for myself. My personal team, I coach our 16Us. We won't be traveling anywhere at that distance if it's not NCAA certified. We may not even otherwise. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Lisa?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Lisa, it's Keith. Probably some good news for some of you that have AAU programs and the younger kids, AAU. The AAU is going to extend the basketball membership probably till the 1st or the last of October. So those that want to run stuff in August, September, their memberships will carry forward for another couple months.
That's good.
Perfect. That's good. That's good to know. Thanks, Keith. And I'm sure you guys will probably push out an update or email with how the exact date it'll go through when you decide.
Yes, I can tell you right now, I know that it's going to go through to the 1st of October, but I'm waiting for them to come out. But I was just on that. That's why I was late getting on this call too, dealing with some of that. But we should have an answer on that by the end of this week or early next week. But that's going to happen for sure.
Okay.
And I don't know, because I live right by the Iowa border, so we're about 8 miles from Iowa. And they've been pretty much open the whole time. And what's interesting is that, see, Iowa runs their high school baseball, softball season. It starts in mid-May typically and done in July. So that's like their high school season, like for high school varsity sports. They are still running it. So July or June 1st, they'll actually start their high school season. So it'll be interesting to see how that works for them. And then hopefully if that's a positive, then some of these other states will see that, you know, our neighboring states like us. And for Keith, I know he'll like this, that the casino's open June 1st as well.
Oh no, you guys stay out of there. I think the virus is hanging out in those places too.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Gonna have some fun. Okay.
Lisa,
Yes.
I believe that I read that Nike and the Run for the Roses will have a video on every court. So if college coaches can't be there, at least they can watch.
Yes.
And that's where I'm thinking, do we go? Do we not go? Do we do something like that here? Save all the money and every club in the state of Wisconsin come together and
Right.
maybe a facility in Appleton that's big enough and we all get games streamed and filmed live, at least the kids.
Right.
If we get that word out to college coaches that this is going to be happening on this date, will we get plenty of viewers if we all share get all our contacts, college coaches?
Corey gave us a thumbs up on it. He likes that idea.
And Mary, I think too, it would actually be better if it's a little smaller like that. If you're going to be in a bigger event and it's going to be with so many, a lot more courts and a lot more teams, going to be a little harder for coaches to find that. Whereas if it's in a smaller event and venue and you only have so many courts going, and then with all of our programs coming together and putting it out to the college coaches, I think there's probably a higher level, amount that it would be seen.
And maybe we just do it for our 2021s. If more ages is too hard, definitely we have to figure something out for these 21s.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we need, if we can get a live stream and get subscribers and all that, that's great. But this might be a year when we just have to kind of do it ourselves in terms of videoing our own teams and sending out videos to colleges on behalf of our own kids. That at a minimum, at least if we get that, we've got something. And honestly, we might be able to reach more schools and the appropriate schools than trying to rely on a pay, live stream thing and hoping that they tune in to our little tiny event in Wisconsin at precisely that moment.
Yeah. Is it possible to live stream and record the live stream? So we have both going on?
Yeah, I think it is, but I don't know the details of all that stuff. But if we were to do something locally, I guess my feeling is I would really want to be able to video the games ourselves, just like with Huddle or something like that. And I don't know if you do the live stream, if those people, that run that try to preclude any of that stuff so that they don't have competition or how that works. But that's the one hesitation I would have is I would want to be able to just film for our own purposes in a situation like that.
Yep. I think we could do both. I wonder if W7 would be interested.
That's what I was going to say too, especially on the girls' side. Obviously, Gary's great with promoting everything, and I know he's been chopping at the bit to get back into things too. That that would be a good resource to reach out to, whether they're willing to help with it, or obviously they have the experience of doing multiple games at one time in the streaming platform and whatnot. That he would be a good one to reach out to.
Yeah.
Lisa, I wanted to add, personally, I'm a bit pessimistic on traveling to some of these events, especially if there's not an exposure opportunity. So if there's if we can be creative and outside the box and find a way to do it more locally, that is much more appealing to me. I think we're kidding ourselves a bit if we think that these events are going to have a ton of college coaches there. Like a lot of these guys, their budgets have been cut, they've been furloughed, et cetera, et cetera. They're not going to spend money, or a few of them will spend money to travel to these events when they can get them live streamed or they can get film in creative ways. And in fact, I was texting Kevin Borseth as we were talking here, and if it's lifted and they can go to exposure events in July, he's not going.
Oh, they may not anyway.
Right.
Okay.
But and nor is he forcing his staff, right? Like, so, and that's just one guy, right? Now maybe maybe Wisconsin's doing it differently, or there will always be somebody that will want to walk in the gray area. But personally, for us in our program, I don't know that the risk reward is worth it in terms of the expense for the families, the chance that somebody gets sick while you're there, which is probably small, but so be it. That's why this concept of possibly doing something more within the state is way more appealing to me than anything else.
Okay. I actually, in listening to you guys talk, I just texted Adam Lagoki from the Champion Center because of their facility size with 8 courts. He said, yeah, he's interested in talking about doing something during those viewing periods in July, because I know that he didn't have anything scheduled during the week. Would you guys be interested in coming together and doing that and staying in the state and making sure, because I've always done the Huddle videos, and we've sent full game films, really good quality game film to coaches. So even if Adam isn't set up for streaming, I think capturing the film is the most important thing, and getting it to the college coaches is the next step. Well, getting our girls in the gym practicing, boys and girls in the gym practicing, getting competition, whether it's in-state or out-state, and getting it recorded and passed on. I mean, I'm willing to talk to my families to say, here's the situation. This is what we're hearing from college coaches. They may not travel even if they are given the green light to, because of these reasons. Do you really want to spend the money to go to Nashville, to go to Indiana and Iowa, when we've got great athletes right in our state and we can stay here I mean, maybe you go to one out of state if you want to, but if we can supplement with the others in state, would you guys be on board with that?
Speaking for Impact, we would definitely be interested in anything that was outside of the currently scheduled events. But at this point, I guess I would like to reserve the right for us to still go to those events. I mean, we're paid, we're signed up. It's far enough out based on the appetite for what people in our club seem to want. They, at this point, seem to be more interested in going to those events still, but that perception could change in the coming weeks here with, NCAA announcements and how the virus is progressing here in these next few weeks. But at this point, I don't think we could commit to doing something in state on the date of the current, what are viewed as live periods, but we would definitely be interested and could commit on anything that was outside of that. And then our perspective might change in a couple weeks as well.
Sure. Thanks.
Hey, Scott, this is Todd Borowski.
Yeah.
What would you think if we were to find a way to be somewhat creative, even if it was during the week? And so on Monday evening, say the 16th play, and you play 2 games that night, and boom, you're back in your car and you head home. And because one of the things that this is my own hypothesis, I think a lot of families, in some senses, early on during this situation, have shifted gears, and some of their weekends have become a little more valuable to them as well. But if we could continue to get girls on tape in competitive interactions, maybe it's not on the weekends and it doesn't interfere with anything that you may have scheduled. Maybe it's during the week. We get them 2 games, they're in, they're out, they're back home in their own beds, and they're only traveling, an hour and a half, something like that. Would that be appealing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love that idea. And I know Mary had some creative ideas down here, and we're actually trying to, if we can get a facility lined up, we're trying to do something likewise. But yeah, I love that idea. And heck, under the circumstances, I think playing back to back, almost treating it like a high school summer league where you show up, you play your 2 games, you're in and out, there's no need for concessions or anything of that nature. And, depending on how many courts the facility has, even a 1-court facility, I think you could do something where, you play, if you have 3 teams, they could occupy 3 time slots. You can have, A plays B, then B plays C, and then A plays C. And you get 3 different teams, 2 games, and 2 of the 3 teams got to go back to back and get out of there. And then one of the teams had to sit for an hour, but you minimize the amount of interaction there, and you get some high quality opponents lined up or at comparable, try to get evenly matched opponents wherever you are on the competitive spectrum, and almost treat it like a summer league. So I think with enough advanced planning, you could do that. And, you got to cover the cost of the facility. And one positive thing I can report is that officials are chomping at the bit. I have a local coordinator down here, and he reached out to, I think, a group of 25 officials, and 24 of them are ready to go without restriction. So I don't think finding officials is going to be a problem if and when we're able to do something. So yeah, I'm all for anything creative. And, I think we're probably all in a similar boat where we're willing to run these things at cost. I don't think anybody's going to make much of anything in an abbreviated season like this. So if we can just cover our costs, at least from Impact's perspective, we're, that's all we'd be looking to do. And I don't begrudge anybody if they want to try to make a few bucks on the side. That doesn't mean we wouldn't participate, but we're not looking for anything extra in kind of these extraordinary circumstances.
No, I agree. I think anything out of the box, anything creative we can come up with to provide for all, and I feel like 99% of the families do want to do something, provide something for their families. So just to respect our time, we're at that 11:15 mark. I'm going to send out 2 documents. One is going to be that, and I'll send it right now, the spreadsheet with the list of tournaments. It's open, it's editable. So if you can drop those in, and I'll make sure that the columns make sense for yes or no with those. And then, and dates and everything and contact, that would be awesome. The second document I'll push out will be kind of a brainstorming document. If possible, I'd like to capture the ideas that you guys have come up with, so that way we can figure out as a group, if we do a league, what could that look like? What facilities, what dates, nights during the week or weekend, whatever it might be. My other thought I was thinking of, and I'm just going to push this out to you guys. In different circumstances, Blaze wouldn't typically rent out or provide space to a competing organization because of obvious reasons. You're like, of course you want them to be part of the Blaze. But if I know that a lot of programs, because they have athletes that travel from far away, they don't necessarily run practices, twice a week or 3 times a week. Sometimes they'll do a camp and they'll run it on a weekend where they have, hey, we're going to go for a full day or 4 or 5 hours. If that's something that you want to do, and I'll have to let my staff know, and they need to be fine with it. But I am willing to open up my doors to say, hey, if you need practice space for I would say for sure your high school teams to get in, I would absolutely open up my doors for you guys. Our space is not a full width court. There aren't out of bounds, but it's absolutely fine for practice, for training. We do use it for that. We just don't use it for like 5-on-5 competition, like between competing entities. But we've been using it for the last year for practice space, no problem. If that's something you guys want, I would absolutely open up my doors. If you want to take some weekends to do that in this month because you can't find any other space, I would do that for you. So just text me, reach out to me, and we can figure something out. So if that helps. I know some of you are far away, like Milwaukee. I'm sorry, Milwaukee. But if it's something you want to do, so we can do that. And we can even, if it's something where you want to do 2 days, like a Saturday, Sunday, and stay overnight, we can figure out host families. We can figure out places to stay to make it doable and manageable for you as well. So I just want people in the gym playing basketball and with smiles on their faces. So with that, does anybody else have anything to say before we close out? Okay. Todd, thank you for joining us this week. Awesome. And I will push out those documents right away. Thank you, everybody. Corey, Mike, Mary, Kara, Scott, Bob, Kelly, Matt, Eddie. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Awesome job again.
Thank you, sweetie.